Hi, welcome to Nautilus TV. I'm Deborah McPherson, web editor at Nautilus International. In this episode, we hear about some research using wearable tech and a mobile app which aims to improve the well-being of seafarers by promoting increased quality social interaction and rest time. It's part of a long-term project being carried out by international maritime charity ISWAN, and with me to give their insights are Jo De Luca, the super yacht executive officer on Yacht Savannah, who's taking part in the research, and Dr. Kate Pike, the lead researcher. Welcome, everyone. So, Jo, tell me about how you are taking part and what it's involved.
So I'm the executive officer on board Savannah, and I work collaboratively with our captain, Chris Durham, to really look after the finance, the HR, the operations and logistics of the vessel, and most importantly, the health and well-being of our crew. So when we were approached by ISWAN to take part, we were incredibly excited to be part of something that we hope will bring about positive change in the industry.
Right. And what do they record?
So they record quite a number of different metrics. One of the big things is that it was recording how rested we were, how stressed we would get throughout the days, and kind of seeing whether there was a trend.
Right. And how did you record your social interaction? Was that via another mobile app?
So there were two other elements to the to the research. So another element was that each participant would each day get a WhatsApp message asking you to rate from 1 to 5. Do you feel valued in your workplace? Is there enough recreational space for you to enjoy your downtime? There was a wide range of questions, all to do with the welfare and health of our crew. So that was done individually. And then as a social ambassador, myself and my crew member, Orla, our nurse on board, she and I would record each day in an Excel document, kind of anything that had occurred on board. So perhaps we'd had, terrible weather and that had affected people's moods, or perhaps we'd had, pizza night on the sun deck, or, something that was quite collaborative that, a lot of crew got involved in. So it was our job to kind of record that and report back to Dr. Kate each week.
Right. And as a social ambassador, what did that involve?
So the social ambassador is kind of charged with taking a leadership role in terms of curating experiences where crew could come together. I guess, it's called the SIM project, and what that stands for is social interaction matters. And whilst we were on charter for most of the time in which the research was ongoing, we tried to find small ways, perhaps we couldn't go, on the weekend to go karting like we would, in our downtime as a group, but we instead found other ways in which to bring people together. There was one, small example where we had a charter for 3 weeks, and, it had been terrible weather outside and the deck were getting hit with 55 knots of wind and torrential rain. And so the interior team and I decided to instead, set up a pop-up hot chocolate stand for when the deck department came in. It's a very small gesture. It gave everybody a 10-minute reprieve from the weather, and really just was a time for us all to connect on something that, it didn't have to be a huge social interaction, but just something that, reminded each other that we're a community and that we're all in it together. I only see this project as a positive, having a positive effect on the marine industry as a whole. I think we have a unique opportunity with the program we have to help raise the standards, not only in the yachting industry, but in all sectors in the maritime industry. Yacht is not an inanimate object. It is a living, breathing, delicate ecosystem, and the crew is at its very core. And I truly think that creating a positive, healthy, and happy environment on board for the crew is really, when you peel back all the onion layers, that's right in the center of it.
Oh, thank you. And overall, what what has it been like to record all this data on board?
So a couple of things that I think have been hugely beneficial to us as a team. So when we were getting asked the questions, and this is actually a byproduct, when we were receiving each day a text message about, are you feeling valued within your team? Have you had enough time outside? It was a really great reminder for us as leaders within the team, within, the Savannah program, to kind of take stock. Have we provided enough rest for our crew? Have we given enough positive feedback? These things do affect mental health. And so each day there was a little reminder when, in fact, the message was asking us, have we received these things? But importantly, are we giving them to our crew? Are we being the leaders we want to be? So I think that was actually an incredibly positive experience that I didn't actually anticipate or really, I didn't expect that at all.
Now to hear from Dr. Kate Pike, the lead researcher on the project. Dr. Pike, can you tell us about the aims of the SIM project and how it evolved?
Yes, the Social Interaction Matters SIM project is a long-term ISWAN initiative, and it's been developing since 2019. The first two phases of the research highlighted several key influences which affect seafarers' ability to enjoy social quality interaction during their rest time. And these included leadership and the culture that sets on board, fatigue and work-rest boundaries, and available recreational facilities. So this phase of the project has three main aims. The overall one is to improve well-being of all seafarers. And the second objective is to expand the scope of the previous SIM research to incorporate this time super yachts and the cruise industry as well as the commercial sector. And so now that we have two vessels from each of these industries represented in the live project. So at the moment, we're looking at about 200 participants currently, and we have the 6 vessels, 2 super yachts, 2 cruise, and 2 commercial vessels, which are in the oil industry. We have a variety of different ranks participating, so that the final objective of this project will be to look at the findings and see how we can reflect and further develop the recommendations and guidance which will be made industry appropriate for all of those 3 industries.
And how are seafarers being monitored on their exercise and social interaction with other crew?
Yeah, this is one of the key differences of this phase of the research, and it employed 2 different data technology tools. Firstly, the research participants are asked to wear fitbits like this one that all the team are wearing, by the way. And we're also using a survey app which gathers wellbeing data from participants. And the fitbits collect anonymized data on rest and sleep, as well as activity, and it's focused around the number of steps taken and the heart rates of participants. But this data is aggregated to show the trends that are emerging from each of the vessels rather than individualized data. So the fitbits are one part of it, and then we have the wellbeing data, which is collected by a third-party partner, Sci-Fi, and they use mobile phone app to deliver a couple of survey questions per day, and there are about 30 rotating wellbeing questions over the month, and they focus on various elements of seafarers' wellbeing, and it gives us a real quality of data that we wouldn't get otherwise, cross-checked with the Fitbits. And then there's a third data collection point, which comes from voluntary appointed social ambassadors on board. This is someone dedicated to communicating the SIM project to the participants, as well as making out daily logs about the social activities that are taking place on board, the general mood of the crew, noting things such as good and bad weather, birthday celebrations, anything that impacts the general mood of the crew. And it also gives us a much richer context to the data that we get back.
Why is being sociable on board so important for crew mental health?
The sim research previously has shown that social interaction, it facilitates a mental reset, if you like, a rest from work. This is really important on board because you often have a blurring between your work and rest environment, because seafarers are living and working continuously in the same place. So when crew get to know each other through social interaction, it builds stronger relationships and it promotes mental health. It improves performance as well, and it contributes to a stronger safety culture, because essentially people care about what's happening to each other because they know each other better. So as you probably know, being social is just one aspect of crew welfare, and there's several factors which help promote mental health through social interaction. These include leadership support, and we've seen that especially on board, but also on shore, and it's really vital to realizing the full potential of the benefits of getting people to interact together. And so that engaged, visible leadership displays more empathy towards people, and that's almost giving people permission to have a bit of a social life and enjoy themselves on board outside of work. Clearly all of this is susceptible to external influences, so it could be weather that has an impact, or port calls, or these kind of things. So there's a lot in the mix that we're looking at with this project that will come out in the data results. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see. And how will the data be used to recommend policies?
There's a few things. The project provides recommendations and guidance which will feed into policy in the longer term, and it acknowledges the unique differences between the three industries that we're looking at, so the super yachts, the cruise and commercial industries. And this phase of the project, as I mentioned at the beginning, is extending the guidance and recommendations, and which can be used by at policy level or shipping companies. But what's important to note is that we're not recommending that people adopt the technologies we're using to collect the data, but more to take on board the recommendations that then come from the data itself, which will be in the areas of looking at having social ambassadors dedicated on board, and helping to highlight the importance of having healthy environments for social interaction to take place. There's a lot more to come, so watch this space, and hopefully the reports will be ready next year.
Oh, that's great. And just finally, the data is all protected and anonymized, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The crew consultants that are participating will sign consent forms at the beginning. We anonymize every piece of data unless otherwise explicitly given permission to use, for example, company names and so on. That's really important to get people's honesty in terms of responding to the survey data, but also to allow us to go further and delve into the details of the findings.
And we look forward to seeing the results.